Welcome on in, members of the chapter, as well as potential new members of the chapter. This is your channel master, Stews and Studs, and in this video, the first thing that we're going to be talking about is the update on this particular thing. What is this particular thing, you may ask? Well, it is actually the pieces of my Thunderwolf Cavalry, or actually the Wolf's Tail. And unfortunately, David Toys messaged me and said that since the Thunderwolf Cavalry have not been produced for a very long time, that this thing is out of print and they will not be able to offer a replacement for me, which is kind of disappointing, but what the heck can you do? I mean, these things have mostly limited runs, so unfortunately we have come on to the limit. However, I look at this as new content, so in some video later down the line I'm going to be showing you exactly how to fix this particular issue. The second thing is that I'm going to be giving you an update to my little man cave, or the war room, or whatever you want to call it. There have been quite a few changes that has happening in the background that you obviously don't see. There was a time in which, I think it was in between March and April, the Warhammer 40K JoyToy action figures kind of slowed down in production, and that gave me a lot of time as well as money, to be honest, because I wasn't investing the money into the figures to invest in other things, such as, well, 2 different new display cabinets where I will be showing you what I will be putting in there, or what I have been putting in there. So fear not, I have been very busy in the background updating the cave, so I am very excited to show you these updates. And so let's get to the tour. All right, starting off with the first update. Well, this is not so much really an update of this particular cabinet. This cabinet was actually moved from one side to this other side right here, and you'll get to see that these are all my painted blood angels. And since I last did a video on this room, there have been absolutely no progress whatsoever in the painting of these miniatures. I've been really busy, and I have a gigantic great pile of shame. So in this area, it used to be the very small cabinet, and I have since moved that and repurposed this to house other things. So this is where my miniatures currently stand right here. Moving on is this second cabinet right here, and this is actually a new cabinet that I bought so that I can obviously expand all my action figures into, and clearly there is absolutely nothing up top over here, and I'm not exactly too sure what I'm going to be putting in that space, but as we all say in collecting, it's nice to have more space than you need right now, because eventually it's going to be filled up with some other faction. And then as we move on down, this is where my Dark Angels are, and you will all see that they are veterans. I really like the bone colored armor over here, and that's why I featured all of them. I think at the last video I probably was lamenting that I could not fit these Terminators in, but they were so cool that I had to give them their own space. So obviously there is Lionel Johnson in the back, Azrael, and the Deathwing Terminators right here. And down here is where I house all of my blueberries, and currently there are way too many blueberries in my opinion, so I have to kind of like call the ones that I want to display, because there's just so many to display. With Mr. McCrag himself right here, then you have Tigurius in the back, as well as a few choice chaplains, and then the Judiciary over there, and Mr. Gilman is obviously back there as well. This shelf kind of displays all of my standard issue Primaris action figures. And then down here is more of my heavy armored action figures, as well as the Castaferum Dreadnought, the Redemptor Dreadnought, the old school Cyclone Terminator in the back, and then the new school Terminators on the right hand side. This particular cabinet you've all seen before. There have been some additions over here with the Interceptor Squad as well as the Strike Squad. Yes, I know this is a little bit cluttered, and I do have to clean it up a little bit, and I think I'll probably end up removing the Interceptor Squad and the Strike Squad because it's just way too busy. And then moving on down is the Black Templar shelf, and there really has been no changes whatsoever, as unfortunately There have not been too many releases of Black Templars recently. And then down here, I decided to move the Adeptus Custodes from the small cabinet to this larger cabinet just because I think that I have to do the Adeptus Custodes justice, because these action figures are so awesome. I love how they look, and I love how Baroque and royal they are compared to the Space Marines. Not that the Space Marines are that shabby looking either. And then moving on down is probably my most varied action figure shelf, where I have the Iron Hands, Salamanders, my single Imperial Fist, the White Scars, as well as the Raven Guard right here. I really like how this shelf looks just because of the tiered system that is in the back here. It really brings out these action figures. And then finally down here I have my Space Wolves shelf, and I really love the Space Wolves. I think JoyToy did a fantastic job with every single one of these Space Wolves, and they have so much character and so much variety in their action figures, so I decided to give them their own shelf. So you have that Thunderwolf Cavalry over here, Ragnar in the front, Bjorn in the back, and the Claw Pack, and then the Mountain, Mr. Arjak. So that is this particular cabinet right here. This third cabinet obviously houses my beloved Blood Angels, and again, there really hasn't been too much movement with this particular cabinet, just because, well, there haven't been that many releases. So you got the Terminators in the front, the Boxnaut in the back, and then moving on down, Mephiston obviously is going to be front and center, and sooner or later Dante is probably going to be on this shelf too, displayed. Then you've got the Blood Angels veterans that are hanging out in the back, and then moving on down to the third shelf, we have the Assault Terminators as well as the Death Company, and then finally we have just the regular action figures. By regular, I mean just the regular Primaris, as well as the Aggressor in the back. And then finally, you got that Blood Angels Redemptor. And here we have my fourth and final cabinet. This is going to be a cabinet that's going to be displaying all my Horus Heresy action figures. And right now, there obviously only is two. We have Abaddon right here, and Mr. Dorn on this particular shelf. We are going to be getting a ton of future Primarchs, so this is the cabinet in which all these future Primarchs are going to be residing in. So back here is what you see behind me when I am filming in the command center. So obviously these are the Sisters of Battle. I've decided to put them on the shelf instead of putting them in a display cabinet because I love them so much. And then moving on down, we have our Bandai action figures with the two Ultramarines in the back. Finally, with this fairly maligned Blood Angels Assault Intercessor. And then moving on down, we have the Morven Val and various other factions of the Sisters of Battle. And then finally, down on these two bottom shelves, we have the lovely Xenos, the very few that I actually have. So you have the Tal on one side and the Tyranids on the other side. I hope to God that they produce more of these Tyranids. These are awesome. And finally down here is where all my Necrons reside. Up here you see all the figures that I keep in the background when I'm filming. Obviously these are the Vanguard veterans here. What really does surprise me is that these particular plastic display pieces for these Vanguard veterans, they actually have held up and not moved, which is really nice. I was actually expecting them to kind of like fold over, but they haven't moved. And obviously we still have the Blood Angels Chalice along with your regular Blood Angels Intercessor. And off to this side, we have the Grey Knight Nemesis Dread Knight just hanging out in the back. And this final part is off to the upper right hand corner, which you never really get to see, are all my Space Marine chibis. And then I have a bunch of unopened JoyToy action figures back here. There is another Blood Angels Boxnaut, an Emperor's Champion back here, as well as another Castellan Crow, and an unopened Blood Angels Blade Guard veteran. And over here are some boxes of old school Firstborn Terminators that I have not gotten around to paint or open. I'll just keep them like this because I like to display them. And then down here, you obviously have the Blood Angels Chibi, a couple of the Vindicator Assassins, and my converted Blade Guard veteran over here. And then I've got some extra Bandai action figures, and finally some unopened Mephiston, as well as a Primaris Captain. I want to show you is the other open air display shelf that I have. There has not been any movement with this one either. So clearly you have the Blood Angels McFarlane action figures still. And then down here are still more McFarlane action figures. And then finally down here, there's a little bit of a mismatch with 2 Sisters of Battle and 1 JoyToy Orc. And that is pretty much my action figure collection. All right, members of the chapter, thank you so much for joining me on this tour of my war room. I hope you did enjoy all the action figures, miniatures, as well as the updates to the war room. As I have said before, Warhammer 40K is something that is super special to me, as well as all of you on this channel. Obviously, you wouldn't be here if you didn't love Warhammer 40K. It is something that I have gravitated toward in the past, especially during my teenage years, and now I love being able to afford all of this stuff as an adult. So I'm extremely thankful for all of that. I'm extremely thankful for you all, and I'm also extremely thankful for me being able to share my passion with you all. So with that being said, thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next one.